This is the Frontier Doubles League, a league unlike the typical threes leagues. We are a North American 2v2 Rocket League competitive league that has a scene for players of all ranks. So, what makes us different besides the fact that we're a 2v2 league instead of the typical 3v3? Well, we offer flexible scheduling, most matches are streamed with live commentary, we're a smaller, more personable community that scrims often. We truly are the most friendly league out there. So, whether you're trying to improve your skills or just want to have some fun, you'll find a place here. To sign up today, visit fdl.gg.
Welcome, everybody. It's FDL Centrist, me, Hawkish, joined here by the lovely Rhino Boy and our lovely guest, Chris with a K. Boys, how you feeling tonight?
Yeah, I'm feeling real good. Can't wait to get this thing started. We have so much to go over, and I cannot wait. Even some announcements later in the show. Gonna be sick.
Chris?
Yep, I'm looking forward to this one because there's a lot to unpack and a lot of things that people have been waiting for, and yeah, it's gonna be a fun night.
Absolutely. Rhino Boy, what a playoff run it was. I'm kind of surprised here and there by some of the results, and I'm really impressed with how some of the teams played. How about you?
Well, we'll touch on it later, but according to the predictions, you should not be very surprised about what happened on the weekend. I should be. Goodness gracious. But yeah, it was certainly a jam-packed weekend of stuff to get our teeth into. So much drama to talk about. I can't wait to get into it, and we're going to start, as we do every single week, in the Origin League. This one was between the Vipers and the Coyotes, an absolutely huge game to finish off the season. These two teams have been going at it, and in the end, the Vipers came out on top. And what do you think about that one, Hawkish?
The ending was really interesting. There was debate, a lot of banter of whether or not the Coyotes made the right decision on letting the Vipers win on a disconnect. I give them props for just being honorable. They don't want to win the wrong way, and they didn't. They took the route that they felt was best. They agreed on it, and the Vipers are our champions. But it was a great series overall. It wasn't like at all any team was stumping the other. Any team could have taken this at the end. So I'm very impressed with how both teams played, and the decision at the end was very honorable.
Absolutely, very honourable. Chris, I want to come to you. When you got the news about the disconnect from Styx in Game 6, what was your initial reaction when you saw that? Was it one of panic, or was it just the show must go on?
Yeah, I was watching that live too, and as soon as I heard Kendo utter the words, "The Vipers are gonna get the win from the Coyotes," I was kind of like, "No way, this is a joke. It has to be," but I just, you know, Toucan Senpai didn't want to win that way, and I respect that. The Vipers in that last game too did phenomenal. I mean, they were 4 goals up. They had the Coyotes dead to rights.
Hmm.
They had Coyotes had 1 goal to come back, like on the comeback, and then the DC happened, and then they scored. And I don't think that is a way that anyone would want to win. I mean, we take those in Rocket League, but Coyotes, they want to win it on, their own terms, and then people would say, "Hey, they're not the real champs. They only won because it was a 1v2." There no good outcome came of it, but I think as far as what they decided to do, I think it's just the most respectable thing that you could do in competition, giving a win with such high stakes. I mean, there's not much better of a way for it to end, except, maybe him not disconnecting in the first place. But
Sure.
I respect the Coyotes for the decision, and we'll have to get a show match in the off season for these two teams.
I really, really hope so. I want to actually piggyback on something that you said. The Vipers were 4-0 up in that game going into the disconnect. Obviously, the Coyotes did get a goal back. Um, I wonder what your thoughts are if the Coyotes had been tying the game or only 1 goal down. Do you see it going the same way?
If it was a tied game, I would expect, maybe it would be a different outcome. Maybe the Coyotes would take it and then just hold it off, because they did take the 6-0 win in Game 6 when Styx first disconnected the first time.
They did.
But, is it still the way they want to win in that case? I don't know. That it's just, it's a rough question to answer, because there's just so many things that could change. Instances, it's unpredictable to tell, and to think what could have been rather than what was. I think you just can't, in the moment you can't really put a, well, what if this happened? It happened, and that's just all people are going to have to deal with.
It certainly is. I'm going to go to Hawkish now. The Vipers, they're often seen as quite an offensive team. We like to think of them as a very attacking team. But looking back on the stats of the season, Rico had the second highest saves in his entire league. How important in twos, especially, is the balance between offense and defense?
Honestly, I would have said that they're one of our best defensive teams, if anything. With Rico, even if you look back on season 2, Chris, you can remember when it was Pro and Rico going about it. Pro was the offensive player. Rico just stayed back and made sure that no mistakes were getting past him, and that he was making sure the defense was being held. And Styx kind of along the same line, so it was still a very balanced team. It was very I think especially in twos, you need to make sure that you don't overcommit. A lot of times, if you can recognize that a team's doubling, a team's committed way too far up the pitch, it turns into just, hey, counterattack, counterattack, counterattack. Try to make sure that you get the ball boomed around the defense. So having good defensive play in twos is very important.
Yep, absolutely have to agree. So the Vipers successfully become your Origin League champions for season 3 after a half decent season. When going 7-3 in the regular season is nothing to sniff at. I mean, Origin League as a whole was just an incredible season this season, wasn't it? I'll go to Chris, I guess.
Origin, that bottom league has always been, I think, the most hyped event in all of FDL when it first started in season 1 with the Courage Conference. Incredible season. Everyone loved it. Season 2, again, so much hype on the line. Unicorns, back-to-back champs for that league. And then you get to season 3, where you have 12 teams competing for it. 6 of them make the playoffs. And I think there's a compelling argument for any team, even in the top 8, not even 2 of the teams that missed out on this championship, the Unicorns and the Owls, I feel like they could have also made a run in this playoff and could have won easily. Origin is always just that much closer at the top. And, looking at this, a lot of people's predictions were the Coyotes were going to destroy the Vipers, just because the Coyotes, who did they beat? They beat the Monkeys in the semifinals, and they beat the Penguins. And I think both of those teams, a lot of people were worried, like, wow, this is probably the bracket of death right there, because you can't pick a winner out of all of those. And then the Coyotes, they sweep the Penguins. And then they take a pretty convincing win against the Monkeys. And then on the other side, Vipers, they had to beat the, not Unicorns, who was it? The Vipers had to beat...
Oh, you're making me think now.
I'm thinking myself, man. I make these playoff brackets too. It was the Eagles and Eagles.
Eagles played the Vipers.
Yeah, in the semifinals, but in the first round,
Weren't they on a bye?
the Eagles were on a bye, but the Vipers played
Dragons. It was the Dragons.
Dragons. Yes.
It was my team.
Thank you.
I should have known that.
Yeah, come on, Hawkish.
So
hey, look, we lost, so we kind of tried to forget it real quickly.
But the Vipers ended the 5-win streak from the Dragons that they had to, just to make the playoffs. They won 5 in a row. Vipers, they were playing against some momentum on that other side. And then, the disconnect on the Eagles game for Styx again, and Merc comes in, super sub of the night.
Wow.
There's just so much that the Vipers had going against them, and they prevailed in the end when I don't think anyone expected them to make it past the Eagles. that is 100% why Origin is one of the best leagues to date in the FDL.
If you remember too, a lot of the predictions were either Dragons and Eagles facing off in the semis, or if the Vipers even got there, nobody was beating the Eagles, according to a lot of the power ranking predictions for that week. So the fact that they were able to overcome that through disconnect, kind of like Chris said, that was very impressive.
Very impressive indeed. We do have to swiftly move on now to the Expert League. It is Hawkish's boys, Pro and Iberia, versus NVA and KP from the Rams. And the Dragons won this one out, Hawkish. Talk a bit about it for me.
Stuff happens, there was a lot of scheduling issues that went into this game that we tried to get around to try to get the best players for the Rams to play. But this Rams team, no matter who plays, is very solid. Throughout the season, all these players have played at various points and have won games. So it was still a tough matchup for my team, but we were able to overcome it. The boys, they got it. I wasn't really too worried, but anything can happen in a grand final. Uveria is known for throwing, so I was very worried about that at times, but they were able to do it, and they came out on top.
Yeah, and I'll go to Chris. This was the only sweep of the grand finals in any league, right? The 4-0 against the Rams. And what does that say about the Dragons in this Expert League? Does it say that they need to be bumped up to the next one, or does it say that maybe, unfortunately, the Rams couldn't field their best team and they were just the best on the night?
There's always going to be questions. It's not about what if, it's about what happened. And I think Dragons going 9-1 in normal league play, Pro and Uveria, or whatever he wants to rebrand himself to now, I think they make compelling arguments that they, can hang with maybe some of the star teams. But there's always going to be that question. Well, Rams didn't have their top roster. They had their lowest salary player and a reserve. So there's always going to be that one thing like, oh, you didn't actually win because you didn't play the, what people expect to be a grand finals team. But, they did it in convincing fashion. It was a sweep. There was only one game that was close, and it was a 5-0 comeback or a 4-0 comeback. So
4-0.
4-0.
Yeah.
So it's not like there was any question that they were able, that they brought it back after, Rams peaked one game. So there's a lot of questions if they deserve to be in the next league up. And I would say that they both proved it in that game alone rather than the series.
They sure did. There is a question that Pro and Wyveria both asked me to ask on this podcast. It is directed at
Oh, no.
Hawkish.
Oh, no.
I've just got to ask you, my friend.
no.
Dragons almost had the undefeated season. I've got to ask you what happened about that.
Uveria threw. I'm gonna lean on that one. I'm gonna keep leaning on that one. But no, Unicorns played a really good game, and we lost the game 5. Honestly, we both had a bad game. It was kind of like that. Sometimes when everything sinks at the wrong time. Like I was having a bad day mechanically, so was Uveria, and the Unicorns happened to be having a great day. Cody was 1000% peaking on us. So they're always a tough team. That's the reason why they were in the playoffs. And it was just unfortunate. We should have done better, and maybe we could have finished out the perfect season, but we did it. And that's on us. At the end of the day, we should have played better.
Well, we may be talking about a team who did get the perfect season a bit later, but first, we do have to move on to the Star League. Eagles taking on the Gators in this one. The Gators on an absolute run of their lives, 5-game win streak, but the Eagles managed to get the W 4-2 over their adversaries in this one. Chris, talk me through what your thoughts were about this game.
It was way closer than a 4-2 would have to, that does justice, because the Gators, I felt like their best games were the first two when they just lost by 1 goal in each. And, if they win one of those games, they could have taken this series easily. But there is just something about that defense, and I don't want to say it's Stoops mostly, but we had our problems with him in Expert League last season with the defense. But that defense rotation and just how the Eagles are managing to stay as close as they were to their players, force them into panic situations. But little does defense win games, and I think it's more of Gators' defense lost that series for them.
Interesting. Very nice call from you. Hawkish, will go to you about this game. Chris put the nail on the head, really, that this game looked much, much closer than a 4-2 scoreline. Maybe some argue it should have gone all 7. I mean, the Gators looked great in every game, but what is it about their playstyle that really makes them so entertaining to watch? Because we know Moyfin and Stoops have got
Yeah.
immense skill. Is it their offense? Is it the way they play? What are we talking about?
I mean, it's going to definitely have to be their offense. I mean, both me and Chris have played with both Stoops and Moyfin quite a bit, and we know their they like to go for offensive plays. They're very aggressive with their decision making, which is maybe it's why their defense faltered a little bit there. Stoops likes to go for touches a lot, and Moyfin, who's really goated offensively, I think maybe at times was, especially in that final, was trusting Stoops just to be back. And at times they just got cut out of position. And against a team like the Star Eagles, who everybody knows how good Galaxy and Easy are, they are stupendous players. So you have to really play really good defense because the Eagles do like to counter a lot. And that kind of breeds a situation that's not the greatest for the Gators. But at the end of the day, think about where the Gators came from. When the season started, Chris, I remember there's a lot of talk in Star League that the Gators were just not a good team. And they clawed all the way back to a grand final. That's impressive.
Yeah, it is super impressive when you look back on their season. I believe they were 2-4 in the regular season before making an immense charge in the final few weeks to get back up to 6-4. And we sometimes talk about momentum in the doubles game, right? And if you've got momentum as a team, if you're feeling good, that can bring results. And it did in their first game of playoffs, but they just couldn't see them through this final one. Does momentum has a factor, but at the end of the day, if it's not your day, then that's just the case, isn't it, Chris? Or is there more to it than that?
Momentum does play a lot into this game, but momentum can only take you so far. You have to make the adjustments in game to actually win a series, and that's Rocket League at the end of the day. Whatever team adapts better is more than likely going to win. And I think Eagles just portrayed it. They were able to shut them down after the Gators came back 2 games and stopped them in 6.
They absolutely did. And speaking of Eagles shutting teams down, let's move on to the big game of the weekend. The Eagles taking on the Huskies in the Elite League. Oh, what a game this was. It ended 4-1 in favor of the Eagles. Sky and CBK looking super, super good as they have done all season. They managed to do it. The first undefeated season in the history of the FDL. Chris, what does that mean? What does that mean for the league?
I think that just goes to show how much better the top of Rocket League is compared to the bottom. Because when you get some of these teams in Origin and Expert that are doing really well, it's just never enough to shut out teams to give them that perfect season. The top of Rocket League, the skill level is so much higher at the top than it is at, you can't get worse at the game. You can only get better. And I think that the Eagles portray, in your case, Akish, yeah, maybe, but in the case of the Eagles, I think they only improve throughout the season. That first matchup between these two teams went to game 4, and how many goals are scored in that? 15 or 17? It was nuts. And now that they, came back through and really shut down the Huskies, I think it just shows that more players understand how people play at the top level. And, Eagles, like I said, adapting, that's just how you win games. And at that level, yeah, they adapted. What was it, 4-1 at the
4-1,
end?
yeah.
Yeah, they shut them down pretty good.
So, Hawkish, we talked about this in the podcast last week. It was said all season, right, that if the Huskies had played Tater and Evil, they would have beaten the Eagles when they played in the regular season. Do you think there was part of that fed into the Eagles win on Sunday night?
I think maybe not completely because I think at the end of the day, the Eagles, and again, Chris knows how these guys are. I think that they're going to play their best game regardless because that's just the kind of players they are. But it does sometimes give you, when you're looking for, if you want to call it that bulletin board material. They heard it all season. We had talked about it in interviews how about some certain people in the league felt about the Huskies and the Eagles. And I think they were trying maybe not to put a statement out there, but they were trying to shut down those doubts, at least in the slightest bit. And I think they did. It kind of also goes to show, even at the top level, how big that gap can be. Because you would think a team, you've seen the Huskies play so well all season. They were 9-1,
Yeah.
and they got utterly shut down by the Eagles in this one, and it did not really look close.
They did, and a question that comes to my mind though is, although it didn't really look close, you can't say much about the Huskies playing badly, right? Because they still had a good game, but some of the offensive plays that the Eagles were bringing out were just too much. And how does this affect the Huskies now, Chris, going into season 4? Right, they're coming in with this pretty big championship loss that maybe they weren't expecting. Is that going to weigh heavy on them, or are they going to want to prove people wrong?
I mean, when you feel like you're the best team and then you get shut down in the way that you do, it's definitely a reality check. I mean, especially, just from playing both these teams in the season,
Mhm.
I definitely felt like the Huskies were harder to play against. Just because that's how the play styles match up. Monkeys only one to take the Eagles to match point in the normal season.
Thank you for
That's
mentioning
my
that.
claim to fame, I guess.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't think it'll affect them too much because, Evil went on a break for some time, so he wasn't playing the game as much as maybe people would have thought. So there is definitely, some dedication issues that when it comes into it, could definitely be one of the reasons why the Huskies lost because that team, the first time we played them, actually, I never played Evil and Tater, but playing Evil the first time, could not get past him on the back line. And it just goes to show that, I think chemistry was a big issue in this one, but Huskies, Tater, and Evil moving into the next season, I don't think that it'll affect them too much just because players at this level know that a loss does not, you know, make you worse than you are. It just shows you that there is more you need to work on.
And they are still absolutely brilliant players. One last thing to Hawkish, and I'm going to ask a very open-ended question because I feel like there is a lot to talk about here. And is there anything else that any other points that you want to make about this game? Because I think it was such an interesting game to watch from the perspective of a spectator and maybe those who are in the lower leagues to watch those guys just absolutely put on a Rocket League clinic.
I mean, honestly, I do think that if you're trying to get better at the twos game, the Eagles aren't a bad team to watch. Obviously, they just went undefeated in elite league, so definitely watch some replays. Maybe look at their plays, try to pick up a couple of pointers here and there. And it's kind of like I wanted to touch on what you said. The Huskies didn't play a bad game by any means. It wasn't like they were just looking really bad in this. The Eagles just looked like they were in a tier of their own, so to speak.
Mm.
And it's tough when you get run into that. Chris, I actually wanted to ask you that. Like, how does it feel? Like, because I know you guys took them to Game 5, and then how the playoffs went. How do you attack that as the team that's on the losing end of that?
Honestly, I felt like in games 1 and 2, we got swept. But I still don't think that does that justice. Game 4, yeah, sure, they were the better team. That was a 6-1 loss for us. But every other game was one goal. The first one, overtime. The
Yeah.
second game, we lost by 2 because one was in that garbage goal time where we're just sending everything to tie up the game. And then the third one, it was one goal. It was 0 seconds that they scored. So there is, you know, I still like to think that we played a better game 1. and we should have won that. We made mistakes that definitely prevented us from winning that. Just more mistakes. One mistake is all that it takes, and I'm still proud of that performance, even though we got swept. I am not going to look back at that and think, "Wow, I suck." No, I looked at that like, I haven't been playing that great, and that was some really good Rocket League, and I still think that that was better than any game in ranked I've ever played this season. So it's all about how you take it. I took it as, we did good, but we could have done better, and it's just something that we have to look forward to in the next season.
Speaking about doing good but could have done better, let's have a quick review of the predictions from last week. Oh boy, this one's a fun one. So we have done our recap of last week now. Thank you so much for having a look at that with us. But we now get to look at the predictions that we made from last week on the podcast. Hawkish is looking very happy about this one, and I am regretting what I said last week about keeping these stats. Following on.
Backfired on you, Rhino.
Yeah, it was. I got confident after week one, and it's all fallen apart. So Hawkish absolutely stormed back into the game this week. He got 3 out of his 4 predictions. He only got the Star League result wrong, which I think is fair. I think a lot of people thought the Gators were going to win. So
Dang it,
very
Gators.
good. Very good predicting from Hawkish there. Last week we had Senpai on the panel. He managed a 50% record. He got the Star and the Expert League predictions right, so missed out on the Origin and the Elite. And then I am sat here in front of you with a slice of humble pie, I'm going to be quite honest. And I got 1 right, which was the Elite game, which was the Eagles taking it over the Huskies. And I predicted every single other one wrong, which means for season 3, me and Hawkish are tied. We both have 8 correct predictions over the 2 weeks. Our guests, unfortunately, this is no reflection on you, Chris, but they came in last with 5 predictions correct over the 2 weeks. Rough one for the guests. We'll see if they can pick it up next season. Now, speaking of seasons, let's go to our league in review. And we want to kind of go through each league and have a look back at what maybe some teams that impressed, maybe some teams that disappointed. And we need to start with the Origin League. And I mean, we'll go to you, Chris, first in the Origin League. Was there a specific team that really impressed you this season?
That impressed me.
Yes, please.
Oh, geez. There's a couple.
If you'd like to give me a team that depressed you instead, I'm more than happy to accept those.
I think it's gotta be. Oh man, that depressed me. It's gotta be either unicorns or owls. I mean, they both. I want to give it more to the owls because I think this team was number 1 going into the season, and to end 5-5 with -4 win differential, it just kind of hurts to see because a lot of people have said that their top lineup was probably the best in all of Origin League, and I would have to agree. That lineup of Rogue and Marked Up was definitely one that I think we're going to get really disappointed that we won't get to see a playoff run from them. And 5-5, I think it just goes to show how much that third man means because you can't do it all alone with one lineup. You have to make sure that third man is solid enough. And I definitely have to say that Owls was definitely the biggest disappointment this season.
Okay, we will flip the script and go to Hawkish. Obviously, the Vipers won the championship. Was that expected at the start of the season? Did we think the Vipers team were going to really, really shine, or was there someone else that we had in mind?
Honestly, no. At least not personally. I know Chris was really high on the Vipers throughout the season. Personally, I really thought it was going to be the Eagles. I thought this was their year, or their season, I should say. And it was kind of unfortunate the way things ended for them. But I really, the Vipers, I thought were going to be good. I just didn't think they were going to win it. That's all. But there was a lot of teams to start the season that we were kind of expecting them to be a lot better, and they kind of disappointed.
Yeah, there are two teams that I want to specifically bring up, and one is the Coyotes, right? Toucan and Senpai, I think, had an incredible season, considering where we thought they would be, and also the Penguins had a very, very good season with Scooteroo playing some ridiculous Rocket League this season. Do either of you want to talk to either of those teams and if you know anything about them or their background, let's have that out now. Coyotes or Penguins? Who wants to take which one?
I want Coyotes.
That gives you time to do some research, Hawkish. Chris.
All right. Coyotes. This lineup, this roster changed completely. It was Tubby Boy, Atlas, and a third man that I cannot think of at the moment. But seeing this change that they went through, it was Kevin or Louis Chub as their third. But this entire roster changed. It went from those three to Toucan Senpai Crusher, who killed it. I think the Coyotes started 0-2 for the season, and they ended 6-4 with that new lineup. They absolutely made a comeback, and you know, there's a couple teams that made these roster changes throughout the season that completely changed up their roster. And Coyotes, well, I guess you could say it was a little bit of an improvement. I mean, they made it all the way to the finals in Game 7, and then they had the integrity to give it to another team. I mean, that is one of the biggest improvements of a roster I can think of.
It absolutely is, and I will go back to Hawkish to maybe talk about the Penguins, but if you just want to talk about Scooteroo, who had a season worth of clips and in crazy stuff, then you're welcome to just talk about that as well. Let's have a quick discussion about that.
The Penguin season or Scooter himself?
You know what? Either, because if you want to just give Scooteroo a load of praise, I'd be down for that.
Look, I love Scoot. We all love Scoot. Scoot's a great guy. Known him for a few seasons now. He's a great player too. When it comes to the Penguins, you know, I was actually kind of curious as to how they built their roster. Because they went a different route. Certain teams go for the top heavy, and certain teams go for the more balanced teams. And I think there's something to say for either strategy. It's really up to you as a captain. But he did go for the more balanced team, and I don't know if so. Like, I think the biggest issue with either strategy is that, like, when it comes with the balanced team, it'll get you a lot of wins when you're playing C lineups a lot, because your team is just good. It's not amazing, but it's good enough. In the playoffs, though, it hurts you because even in your top lineup, it might not match up with another team's top lineup. So he went that route. I think maybe certain decisions could be made differently, but they had a great season, and nonetheless, they played great. And Scooter, he's a great player, and I know he's going to come back with a vengeance next season.
I look forward to seeing it myself. Next up, we are going to the Expert League. Let's quickly talk about that. Any people who impressed you in the Expert League? We'll go first to Hawkish since it is his league. And no, you cannot say your own team.
No, I mean, they didn't impress me. They disappointed me. But no, anybody that impressed me, an expert. I want to. I hate saying this because I know he's going to be in chat.
Okay.
But I'm gonna have to say the Owls.
Right.
I really, not gonna lie, for the first half of the season, I thought they were bad. I thought they had no chance. I'm just gonna be blunt about it. And give Street his credit. Him as a captain benched himself. He realized what needed to happen, and they picked up a great player in Brother who played really well with Asiago Beans, and they were able to come back this season and make it very far in a season where I wasn't sure if they were even going to make playoffs. So that were the team that impressed me. On the other side of the coin, I was really not upset, but sad for the Seagulls. I thought they were a much scarier team on paper to start the season. And through a little bit of string of bad luck, the season just didn't go their way. And it's just disappointing because I thought that's a team that if Bondo and Zana had made it to the playoffs, that would have been scary.
It was an absolute shame for the Seagulls. Chris, let's come to you. Anyone you'd particularly like to give a shout out to here in the Expert League?
Player or team?
You know what? I'll give you either. If you have someone in mind, go for it.
You know what? I got to give it up to my boy Zink over on the Coyotes. That man he had a season, man.
Yes.
Especially when I don't want to say single-handedly, because him and Hyper definitely pulled off one of the best wins I think happened all season long when they beat the Rams in 5. That Zink was a different animal that game, and I will stand by this. I've been telling him this since last season. I still think this man is one of the best players out of the Expert League. I mean, just his abilities on the field and his mindset are one of top 3, I would have to say, in the Expert League. I think, because he even came to me during the playoffs. He's like, man, I don't know if I should play. I felt like I didn't do good. And I gave that man all the confidence in the world after that. And he played himself. Unfortunately, they got swept. So I guess don't listen to me. But
Don't listen to Chris. Never listen to Chris.
So, I mean, but that, man, I can't believe he hasn't won a title yet. I mean, he brand new to the league last season, made it to playoffs. This season, captained a team all the way to playoffs. 7-3 was their record, and I feel like that goes overlooked a little bit when you like, hey, Rams 9-1, Dragons 9-1, and then no one really talks about the Coyotes. And I want to just say that I think Coyotes had, I don't want to say an upset season, but you were right, Hawkish, the way teams build. Coyotes was that middle of the pack team. They were all around 14 salaries, and they made a run and a record that I don't think a lot of teams would have thought they would have. So Zink and the Coyotes, fantastic job this season.
Absolutely great job to Zink. It was a pleasure to watch you over the season, and we shall move on to the Star League now. Obviously, the champions of the Star League were the Eagles. Let's talk about the Eagles for just a second. They had a crazy season, didn't they? Chris,
It was all right.
it was all right. Okay,
They only won a grand final. It's all right.
yeah. It's a whatever.
Light work.
Right?
I would say, they were expected to be a good team. I'll give Chris that one. It's not like they weren't ranked very highly to start the season, and there were other teams that were kind of questioning it a lot. I remember early on in the seasons, there were certain other teams that were like, "Why are they number one? They shouldn't be number one. Like, we're better." And the Eagles did prove a lot to teams that, hey, you think you're better than us? Come show us. And they weren't able to show them.
They absolutely were not. I've got maybe a bit of a tough question for Chris, but I'm interested to see what you think. So the Eagles obviously topped the flight conference, and the next 3 teams in that conference did not make playoffs. It was all to do with the Terra League, the Terra Conference. My apologies. What was it about the Seagulls, Penguins, and Unicorns that just made it not stick? Other than the Unicorns, obviously going without a win the entire season.
That 0-10 definitely hurts. Another first in the FDL, so not a reputation you won. But
there you go.
I mean, I think with this format for Star and Elite League, they had to play the other conference, and a lot of those wins just came down to Terra teams beating flight teams in the end. And you play your own conference twice, and a lot of people are like, okay, have to win these matches to make playoffs. Well, I think the narrative for Star League went, whoever won those cross-conference matches made playoffs. I mean, even if Eagles, you want to take the top 5 teams, Rams, who ended last in Terra Conference, still had a better win differential than the Seagulls, who was the second team in flight. I mean, I don't want to say I wouldn't say Terra was tougher than Flight, because Seagulls pulled off some upsets. I think they took the very first win in a sweep against the Eagles that first week. So I can't say that, Terra was so much better. I think it just came down to that, those every match matters in that season, and I don't think the flight teams planned accordingly for it.
It doesn't seem like they did, Hawkish. Let's quickly go over this then. So it was a three-way tie win-loss records between the Monkeys, the Rams, and the Seagulls, and it was the Seagulls' lower win differential and the Rams' even win differential that cost them places in the playoffs. How close does that show you that the middle of the pack is in Star League, and how exciting is it as a league to watch?
Well, it's going to be very interesting, I think, more next season because we saw how it ended. So we now can kind of have certain expectations for Star League because I think there's going to be a lot of returning players in Star League versus, say, for example, the top teams in Expert. A lot of the teams, even like if you think about the teams that were in the championship, a lot of the players are probably going to be bumping up to the next tier. So Expert's going to be completely different. Star, it's a lot of returning players, so it's gonna be it shows just how deep Star League is going to be, and how deep it already is. Because Star League, I think, is one of the closest tiers I could say. Because you can say there is a top team, top 2 or 3 teams in almost every tier. I think you could probably name 5 teams that could have won the championship in Star.
Mhm. Absolutely, I think that's a fair assumption. Let's go on to a league that was a little bit more cut and dry this season, which is the Elite League, and we cannot start a conversation about the Season 3 Elite League without immediately going to the Eagles. We've already talked about them once this podcast, but they were dominant, weren't they, Chris?
Yeah, it was all right.
You're killing me, man.
Yeah,
Come on.
dominance might be an understatement, as they only dropped 4 games in the normal season and 1 game they've lost 5 individual games, which is very difficult to do. I mean, that's
Yeah.
as close to a perfect season as you get. If they went 30-0 and then, swept every team in the playoffs, oh man, you've got a team built different right there.
Yeah. That is absolutely a team built different, but they were built different realistically. I mean, we also do have to talk about the Huskies, who did also have a pretty incredible season. Hawkish, they actually had a higher goal difference than the Eagles did, but they just couldn't get the job done against the Eagles twice in the season. Moving on to next season, those guys are going to be hungry, right?
If they, I think that if they come back as a team, oh, that's gonna be scary. That's gonna be one of the better teams once again in Elite. I'm very interested to see because I know Chris can probably speak more about it, but there were some very interesting characters that are probably joining us next season at that very high level that I think are already in the server. So I'm actually interested to see if maybe the Huskies decide to swap a player out or if there's going to be another dark horse that comes out built from these new players coming in that maybe says, hey, Eagles, Huskies, move aside. We're here now.
I have to say, I hope there are. We do also have to unfortunately talk about the Gators, who did go 1-9 in the regular season.
Robot.
That's a rough one for our streamer Robot. They won the first game of the season, right? They won the first game of the season, and then
Robot's going to mute Rhino.
the wheels fell off. Chris, before I get muted, what went wrong for the Gators this season?
Well,
They quit.
yeah, essentially they did. But I'm not going to mention who they won against because I don't want to call anyone out in particular.
Yeah.
But Anthony was on a 6-month break. Okay, I needed him, and it was 1 goal at the end. It's always 1 goal that we lose by, man. I don't know what it is, but I mean, yeah, just who'd they play? They played the Monkeys, Rams, Huskies, and then the Eagles.
Yeah.
And then they quit.
Okay.
And looking at these players, Huskies and Eagles, made playoffs. Monkeys made playoffs. Rams 4-6, which, if they won game 5 against us, it wasn't streamed, but incredible match. You'll have to take my word for it.
I blame
Mhm.
shit
They
on
could
that.
have easily made playoffs as well. So they played arguably the top 4 teams in Elite League as well. And, it's just how you're composed. I would say your mental state in Elite matters more than your actual gameplay. If you are able to stay composed in a game, you were never out of a game.
Absolutely never out of a game in Elite because, I mean, it is just an absolutely incredible league to watch, and you will have to do that next season. But for now, we have the moment that everyone has been waiting for, or the moments, potentially, for everyone in chat. So let's get hype going because we have some announcements to make. The first one is the Rams were GM-less. Chris, they're not anymore, are they?
No.
I'm setting them up for you, man.
Dramatic
I
pause.
can't do
I
much
was-
more than I'm doing.
I was kind of thinking, are they still GM-less with this new one? But no.
He has to double check.
No,
it is who it is.
It's J-Dubs coming back for the Rams. He was there in season 2. He gave it to Eid in season 3 because he didn't want to. And he is back for season 4. Gonna take over the Rams where it all started. And, he led that team to the championships in season 2. So we'll have to see what he can bring and if he can make another championship run with this team.
We certainly will. Hawkish. I mean, J-Dubs in season 2. Obviously, they're leading the Rams to a season title, as we just mentioned. How big of a pickup is this for the Rams?
Well, first of all, I need you to address him by his proper name, and it's Congress J-Dubs.
Congressman J-Dubs. My
So,
apologies.
no, that's going to be a really good pickup for them. J-Dubs is a very smart, I think, captain as he was last season. But when they took him to the playoffs, he's very good at knowing how pieces should fit. So I think that he's going to build a team that's going to be very cohesive at all levels of the Rams that they play in. So I think that's going to be a great pickup for them, and he's going to attract a lot of good players, people like J-Dubs.
Absolutely brilliant for the Rams. Congratulations to J-Dubs as well for getting the Rams GM job. But that is not the only GM that we have to announce in this podcast. There will be new teams coming to the FDL in season 4. We're super excited to reveal them to you. We cannot yet, but we can reveal the GMs for each of those teams. Chris, who has been appointed?
Am I allowed to say the team names?
We're not allowed to say the team names just yet, but we will say who the GMs are going to be.
You could say what conference they're in.
Ooh,
Well,
that's a nice little leak.
in the Terra Conference, the only new team being added in over there will be led by Harmonic, one of the fine casters of the league, and was the original owner of the Dragons back in season 1. So he made the playoff run then, and building teams, I think he can do it again.
absolutely brilliant stuff. Harmonic will take charge of a team in Terra. We don't know who it is just yet, but he will. And who are we talking about in the flight conference, Chris?
In the flight, there are 2 new teams, and I believe I don't think I'm mentioning the other GMs quite yet, but the new teams, one will be managed by Yeet. And if you don't know him, he managed the Rams in season 3. So this man knows how to build strong teams. I mean, all of his teams ended 5-5 or better. So they have winning records for that franchise. And moving to another team, it is looking to be another great season for him.
Yeet is to be picked up in the flight. Who else do we have?
That's a great question. Who else do we have?
I can tell you that one of them might be beginning with Send.
Yes. Okay. And for the last team that we're adding in, it will be led by Senpai. Great name, better caster, and even more respectable person. He is going to be leading that team. Almost got I almost leaked it myself.
That
But
team.
I am probably most excited for that one, as I think the colors are the best. I'm just gonna leak it. It's black and yellow, baby.
Yeah, it
What
is.
you think it is? I don't know. There's a lot of things that can be black and yellow. It's not a B because it's in a mythical division, so it's not a B.
You will have to speculate on that. Hawkish. People want to know
Stare
who
at
these
you, Chris.
teams are, right? People want to know what's going on. They want to know where to find the information. Please let the people know what is happening with these releases.
Well, absolutely the reason we are waiting, and I know Chris is wanting to grab me by the throat because he wants to get these names out. We're gonna release them next week. There's gonna be at least one video. We might do more depending on timing and if we can get everything done in time. But next week we'll announce these new teams. You'll see all these franchises suddenly going dark on Twitter, and so be on the lookout. You'll see little hints, little quote unquote leaks that are going to coming out throughout the week, and hopefully next weekend we'll be seeing some fun reveals, and I think everyone's going to be really excited with what comes out.
Very excited for that. Chris, we have one final announcement. Would you like to make it? I feel like we've saved the best for last, but please take control.
Press with a K for Congress. Woo! Let's go! Yeah, no, that's not happening. The start, I believe it's the start date for season 4, which will be taking place October 10th. That is the first official day.
Woo!
That's the first week of league play for season 4. So, you have less than a month for the next season, and
Get
expect a lot of
ready.
things to happen in that time.
Less than a month. I am super excited to get season 4 underway. We have all sorts of tournaments coming to you from the FDL. In the meantime, get excited for that over the next couple of weekends. Stay tuned on the Twitter and the Discord to pay attention to that. That is all we have time for today. Does anyone have anything they would like to add before we sign off? Chris first, if you have anything.
Hmm.
You know what? I'm going to stop you right there. Hawkish.
I have the power to leak a lot of things. I don't know.
Hawkish, anything you would like to mention?
Please, pretty please fill out the dang intent form if you played last season. We need to know who's playing next season. We need to know if things have to change for next season. So please, please fill out the intent form as quickly as you can, so Chris with a K is able to get his numbers in order and figure out what we got to do as league ops.
Absolutely. We need those intent forms in because there could be potentially some very exciting changes coming soon to the FDL. Stay tuned for that as well. But yes, thank you so much for watching FDL Central this week. We've absolutely loved bringing it to you. We hope you enjoyed that recap of Championship Weekend. We look forward to seeing you over the next couple of weekends and for season 4 in less than a month. I cannot wait for that. Thank you, Robot, for streaming. We really appreciate you and everything you do. Thank you, Hawkish and Chris, for joining me this evening, and we will see you very soon in the FDL. Good night.